the event is being live streamed. That's another important thing. We have a Q&A section. So if there are questions, hope that you can filter them in that arena so that we can get to them in the easiest way. If they come in the chat, we might miss them. So that's the challenge with that, but love seeing things in the chat as well. So I'm looking at the chat. It's a bit distracting, so I will try to not allow that to happen. Anyway, so welcome to the President Speaker Series, Guttman Community College President Speaker Series. It's been a great series. This is our 4th installment for the year. This is, oh, hi, Dr. Valdez. Great, everyone's here. I'll start and allow folks to fill in. So welcome. I'll talk a little bit about Guttman now. For those of you who may not know, we are the newest 2-year college to be established in the City University of New York. We are a designated Hispanic serving and minority serving institution, and a significant number of our students are first-gen college students and come from all 5 boroughs and a few lingering cities outside of the boroughs. Since our inaugural class in 2012, we've been deeply committed to an academically rigorous and equitable ecosystem, and we have gained a stellar reputation for that. Featured in peer-reviewed journals and presentations across the country for our graduation rates of 40% or higher. So we've been doing really well when looking across the local and national averages for community colleges, which are around 14-20%. And so as a result, we've gained some recognition, some honors, been named the best community college in New York City by niche.com. And we take a lot of pride in that and hope to continue that success and only sort of improve and get better and closer to community. Dr. Johnson, if you could share a little bit about the speaker series and why we're here today, it'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carlos. And so good to see my colleagues, President Ramsey, Dean Valdez. Thank you so much for being here. We're still waiting on President Mangino. So excited to begin this conversation with you. So as I envision this speaker series, it truly was an opportunity to illuminate the stories of key figures in New York City. But also additionally, it was the purpose of the series to introduce Guttman community to persons who are champions for student success and community colleges and higher education. This theme this year, entitled Strength, Courage, and Resilience in the 21st Century, has really been something that has rested with me over the last 2.5 years as we have dealt with health pandemics and we've dealt with social unrest. And it really was an opportunity to really talk deeply about those topics that help to inspire our students, hopefully to also inspire our communities as well as we continue to really struggle with so much uncertainty that still rests with us. So I'm excited that I'm able to end this session with 3 dynamic women who serve in the CUNY system. And while this is Women's Herstory Month, right, History Month as well, we want to not only make this kind of the ending of the month, but this is just the beginning of conversations that will seek to continue to amplify the role of women in our society and such great contributions that they're making. So I'm glad that this series is ending with these 3 dynamic speakers.
And the speakers are, we have our bios have been listed, and so I'm going to skip on the bios and let us dive into the conversation, but I'll name our speakers who we see in front of us. So we have Medgar Evers College President Patricia Ramsey. If we can give a silent clap for her, however that works, Zoom clap. And we have Macaulay Honors College Interim Dean Vanessa K. Valdez. And I believe we have Queensborough Community College President Christine Mangino, and I will recede to the background and figure out how to make her appear, but we can clap in the interim, and I will step away and allow the conversation to happen. Excited to be here and grateful for you all for joining.
Awesome. Well, President Ramsey, how are you? Good to see you.
Doing great, thank you. Good to see you as well.
Awesome. Dean Valdez, good to see you, my colleague, my cohort. my cohort sister, and certainly, oh, there she goes. Hey, President Mangino, so sorry, we're working through it. We're still,
That's okay.
we're not Zoom experts yet, but we're working through it. But it's so good to have each of you with me. And I want to just start off by allowing the audience to just hear what I like to call at Guttman Community College, many of my meetings, we start off with points of pride. So I would like the opportunity for each of you to just share what you would pin as points of pride that represents each of your stellar institutions. And we will start with President Ramsey.
Well, thank you. I'm always excited to have an opportunity to talk about my institution. We are located in central Brooklyn, which was one of the hardest hit communities during the COVID-19 pandemic, during the height of the pandemic. And so Medgar College contributed tremendously to the health and safety of New Yorkers during that time. Living up to its social justice mission, Medgar Evers turned its gymnasium and auxiliary buildings into a FEMA vaccination site where more than 200,000 New Yorkers were vaccinated. These New Yorkers were of many different races and ethnicities. And also the Transition Academy is a great point of pride related to that, because not only does it address food insecurity and housing instability for our students, but during the height of the pandemic, it provided food to the community in which the college is located. And so these are just a couple of things that I wanted to say. There are many others.
I love it. The Medgar Evers College. What about you, President Mangino?
So besides the fact that we're on 37 acres of beautiful land, we are really focused on our student experience and having undergraduate research, making sure that we're doing high impact practices. We have learning communities in our academies that we're famous for. We also have a lot of disciplines specific accreditation. So our theater degree program, our music program, our art and design, our engineering programs. And then finally, we just recently launched our Truth and Racial Healing and Transformation Center. So the first in New York City. And, you know, as a campus, we have really galvanized and created a 5-year strategic plan that is focused on equity for everyone, students, faculty, staff, and making sure that people feel a sense of belonging and inclusion on our campus.
I love that. And actually, you invited me to be a part of one of those speaker series, and I totally love that. So now I know, because I am a musician, I know where I can go some of that symphonic and those musical arrangements and compositions and all those great.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. So last but certainly not least, Dean Valdez.
Thank you, Dr. J. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about Macaulay. So a lot of people don't know Macaulay actually exists on 8 of our campuses. So there is Macaulay at Baruch, Macaulay at Brooklyn, Macaulay at City College, Macaulay at College of Staten Island, Macaulay at Hunter, which is our largest cohort, Macaulay at Lehman, Macaulay at John Jay, and Macaulay at Queens. And so for me to talk about these are students, you know, oftentimes people come and they go, oh, well, these are the honors students and how are they different from CUNY students? They are not. I have had, prior to this appointment, I have been in this system. This is my 15th year as a professor in the City University of New York. And I have had brilliant students. Previously, I was at City College. I've had brilliant students the entire time, because our students across the system are hardworking, are diligent, are dedicated. They have their eyes on what they want, not only for themselves as individuals, but more often than not as the families that they are a part of, be it the ones that they are born into or the ones that they are creating. And so the difference between Macaulay and the rest is they're just more of them. Like it's just a higher concentration of brilliance, but that is brilliance that one can find, again, across our system. And in addition to those 8 schools, we have partnerships. I will be speaking with several of you coming up, my community college partners in particular, because we have on-ramps we are building on-ramps from the community colleges into the honors college. And so again, we are a space where we recognize the academic excellence and innovation of CUNY students. And so we are up here on the Upper West Side. This building is in Manhattan, but Macaulay is found throughout our boroughs. And we are always open to collaboration across the board.
I love that. I love that. So for all of you that are watching, feel free to use your button at the bottom and share whatever emotion that you would like to. So a shout out to our Chancellor, Felix Matos Rodriguez, for the selection of just dynamic leaders who care deeply about student success. So again, welcome to each of you, and thank you for sharing that information about your institutions. So let's get right into the conversation here. So each of you all have years of experience as scholars and leaders par excellence. And as you reflect on your personal and your professional journeys, what is it about this moment in time that makes you hopeful for a more inclusive nation? And I'll change it around a little bit, and I'll begin with Dean Valdez.
The greatest thing about being an educator, one of the greatest things, but probably very high up there, about being an educator in the City University of New York system is that we know firsthand on a day-to-day basis the opportunity to change lives. That is what we do, right? And we talk in this system about social mobility and economic access and all of that. We know that the people that we educate, right, we give them the tools to go and excel in whatever way they can. They are what brings me hope, because we, it's interesting to me to connect not only with Macaulay students, past and present, but my own students from years, from when I was at Vanderbilt as a PhD student to my years at City College. They continue, it's always fun, right? They'll reach out and it's, oh, well, this person is now running their own business. Oh, this person is a researcher at Princeton, this person, and it's, you see what you do, right? That gives me hope, because we truly, our classrooms are the classrooms of the world. And so as much as we invest in our students and whatever space we are in the system, as an administrator, as an educator, as an advisor, as the person who runs the sports program, anybody, right? We truly are seeing, walk through our gates day in and day out, the future of this country. And so that is what gives me hope, is the students that we see in our classrooms.
Oh man, I love that. I can feel that. Yes, that you not only said that, but I believe that you feel it and you know that, and your history here in CUNY certainly speaks to that. What about you, President Mangino?
I think so. When I first started teaching, right, and I would teach future teachers, one of the classes was, just on the foundations of education. I would share information about, that only 10% of college presidents are females, right? And the first time in our country that we had a school superintendent who was a female, it wasn't because they felt she was qualified. It was because they could pay her a lot less than they were paying the men, and they didn't think it was an important position. So now we're at a point where, okay, we have 30%, right, of college presidents are females, and, mostly at the community college, very few, for Ivy League schools. So yes, we're making some progress, slightly slowly, but I am hopeful in the fact that we are now in a place as a nation where we're able to call each other out for our biases and when we hear things. Like, it's now okay to talk about it. And I think there's a lot of pressure on companies to diversify, right? And there's more research out there that shows that women-led companies actually make more money, right, for their companies, and their employees are more satisfied. So we definitely, we're getting there. And then, my biggest, last night I had my kids over, and I look over and, the two boys are in the kitchen cooking, and my stepdaughter and I are building a piece of furniture. And I'm like, this is exactly where we need to be right now, right? So, yes, we are getting there, and hopefully we have new generations coming up that, wouldn't even think twice about not considering, men and women as equal.
Oh, absolutely. President Ramsey.
Yeah, thank you. I think that what Christine just shared with regard to the conversations beginning to happen is very important. I recall when I first became provost some years ago, we had to do a report on effectiveness and efficiency. And it was the most hurtful thing for me to see when I saw that report, that it was stated in the report that they were able to do cost savings because they were able to pay the new provost less than the previous provost. The previous provost was a male, I, of course, a female, and the amount that I received was actually more than I was offered, because I said, well, I have to have at least, and then I find that the person who preceded me was making so much more. I went into the president and I said, I really don't appreciate this, because the same president hired both of us. And I said, I would like to have an increase in salary equivalent to what the previous person had. And so we exchanged a little conversation. And I also said, and I noticed that my special assistant is not being paid nearly as much as the people in the previous administration. And I would like a salary increase for her as well. And so at that time in the system, the maximum that you could get was 15% without going to the chancellor. But I was able to, through that conversation, and so we have to have bold conversations. Through that conversation, I was able to get both my special assistant and me salary increases. I think that we as a nation, because of what has happened over the past couple of years, see the need for these conversations. And as devastating as the COVID pandemic was at the height of the pandemic, it really, I think, put people in some different perspectives and caused more conversations to happen. And so we cannot address any issue unless we have a conversation about it. And I always have to throw that piece in there about being a botanist. When you go to the tropics and you look at the plants, you will not see any stand of plants that are of the same species. There is strength in diversity. And so we need to sometimes take a look at nature.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'll not look at plants the same way again. So So President Mangino, you've had the opportunity to serve in various positions at CUNY. And when you reflect on those experiences as a faculty member and administrator, how do you feel that those experiences really shape your outlook on leadership and refine your focus on gender equality?
So I think, for those that don't know, right, I started out as a faculty, and then I became a coordinator of a degree program, and then chair of a department, and then a dean for faculty and curriculum, and then provost. And each step, right, you get a different perspective, but you always remember the perspective that you had, and you realize how little information ever trickles down to people, right? That for people to really understand the bigger picture. It wasn't until I was a dean that I realized, we considered full-time, right, 12 credits just because of financial aid purposes, but yet it never dawned on me that students aren't going to graduate in 2 years if they're only doing the 12 credits a semester, right? So there was so many different parts where once I got into, the Office of Academic Affairs, you realized, faculty need to know this, right? So I really try, not to have information trickle down, but really, how do you make it gush down, right? Because there's so much and so many people. So making sure that things are transparent across the board also, because otherwise, people make up their own stories if they don't understand the reasoning behind things. So making sure that, everything is out in the open for everyone is really important. And then related to gender, it's about making sure that, there's a balance and that there are women represented on every committee and at every level, and that women, are quick to volunteer for the free service. and not necessarily the service that, you know, comes with the release time, right? So, you know, when I tried to do an analysis at Ostos based on gender and who was doing what, you started to realize like, oh, you know, more men were going for those really front and center positions, right? And the women not so much. And I think that's really important to always keep an eye on.
Love that, love that. Advocacy, boldness, access is so critically important. Dean Valdez, you are certainly a scholar in your own right, having written publications and, you know, and just doing some amazing work at the Macaulay School. As you thought about stepping away, you know, from that role, and we're always teachers all the time, but in preparation for this opportunity that you now have, in what ways did you prepare, and what was that defining moment that led you to say, you know what, I can do this?
Yeah, it was an interesting moment. So my foundation is my commitment to service. And as an educator, I am in service to the students and to their success. And I want to echo what Christine just said, particularly about transparency, because more often than not, our students don't know that we are invested in their success. We don't say it. We, the adults, as the professors, as again, anybody, we don't say it enough. And so I have walked into the classroom on the first day of classes and I've told them, you know, we lay out expectations, you know, I go, what are your expectations of me as a professor? More often than not, they didn't know how to answer that question. I give them examples that we got there, right? Can you email me back? Yes, I can, you know, things like that. And I would say these are the ground rules, right? I will show up for you. You need to show up for me. I'm invested in you. You need to show up. Now, if you're okay with that C, I'm not going to care more about that than you do. So, and then we move up. So that's as a faculty member. I next move to the directorship of the Black Studies program at City College. Same thing. I found that faculty, full-time and part-time, had not heard from folks at the head of the pyramid. I'm invested in your success. How do you define your success, and how can I support you in the attainment of your goals, right? And so, and same exact thing, people need to be seen. And when we are at the head of the pyramids, we have to articulate that, right? I see you, I hear you, I want you to succeed. How do we get there, right? And so when I got this opportunity, it was that groundwork that allowed me to actually say yes, right? To say, okay, so now I have the opportunity to lead a school that I knew very little about. I had served on the admissions committee of Macaulay at City College. And yet I didn't realize, oh, they're on 8 campuses? Wait a minute. Okay, wait. And so it is the reason why I'm so thankful to be able to even start this conversation by introducing for so many people in this audience what Macaulay is, because it has been this kind of hidden jewel that has been wrapped in perceptions of elitism, exclusivity, because you say honors and people think, oh, that equals whatever they think it equals. And so to put me at the head of honors is to say, no, I am the face of academic excellence. Everyone on the screen is the face of academic excellence, because we were all honored. There's no way we could be here if at some point we didn't excel. And so in that way, again, the students of this city look at us and they go, oh, wow, I can do that. Yes, you can. And with every given moment, that is our dedication and that is our passion, is to say, how do we get you there? That's our job. We're not going to let you fall through the cracks. How do we get you there? Because our job is to get you through that finish line and set up for the rest of your life. And if we get the chance to play a small part in your lives, that is the greatest part that we can play.
Oh, I love that. And that resonates so much in terms of giving the opportunity for persons to have a seat at the table. And not only have a seat at the table, but when you get there, looking for ways that you can bring others to the table. I think that is so profound. So to our audience members, you have an opportunity to ask questions. Please use the Q&A to ask questions, and we will pose those at the end of our program. So President Ramsey, our theme this year, strength, courage, and resilience, as you know, is the central tenets of this event. You recently arrived as the 6th president of the Medgar Evers College and the first woman to serve in this role. Talk to us about the impact of this moment on you personally.
Yes, well, thank you. I really didn't realize the impact until I actually arrived. I will never forget when I was being considered by the board. Giovanni was on the board at that time as the student rep, and she said, "I want to say something." She said, "It is at this moment in time that it is so important that we are able to say here today that we have." A first woman, because it really allows students to be able to see that they are able to aspire to that. And it happened to have been in Women's History Month when I was voted on by the board. And so I was really excited to hear her say that, but not really realizing what it really meant, not just to students, but even to the community. I've been in so many sessions with community members where they are talking about how proud they are as women to see a woman in this role. But I also like to add, whenever someone talks about me being the first woman, I'm the first woman, but also I'm the first scientist. And so it lets women see that not only can I aspire to be a president, I can aspire to be a scientist, and I don't have to be kept in a box. I can then be whatever it is that I want to be. And it really, for me, makes such a difference. I mean, most of our students are female, and to be able to see someone in this role who is female, really, I think, for our community in particular, is something that is very important. And so I feel a sense of, I would say, of my needing to really realize that it's not about me. It's about what I can do in the lives of others to help make a difference.
Oh, I love it. I felt that. Thank you for that. So across the nation, women are leading in some of the highest positions in their field, and we're seeing this happen. We're waiting for the confirmation of a first woman of color soon, and just the gravity of these appointments signals to some that gender equality and women in leadership and in influential roles may be changing for the better or improving, as some would say. Would you agree with that statement? And in your opinion, what more can be done to ensure that women have access to equal pay and opportunities as their male counterparts? And we will start with President Mangino.
So yes, I think we're improving. I think we still have a ways to go, right? And I think we have to not just look at what we're seeing, but looking at the data, right? Are women's salaries equal across the board? Are women, equally represented at every level, right? And in every role? If you look at the Fortune 500 companies, right, you can see that the answer is no, right? We still have a really long way to go. And I think, it's important for, female leaders to reach back, right? And help people and do mentorship and provide, insight and advice and opportunities for sure. There's studies that show that women who their resume is like 50%, or 90% of their resume matches a job posting, right? And they'll still consider whether or not they should apply for that, right? Where men, it's at 50%. If they have 50% of the skills that the job ad is showing, they'll apply for it without thinking twice about it, right? So how do you help women gain that confidence and get past the imposter syndrome, right? So that they are taking the opportunities. And I think, mentoring is huge. Men have so many other opportunities to have other male mentors, right? And it's common throughout their entire careers, where women really need to make sure that we're helping create those connections for each other.
Love that. Thank you. Dean Valdez.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Christine just said. And also, Well, one, acknowledge that, men play a vital part in this, right? And so the idea that, as far as I know, it was a chancellor who appointed all of us. And it was this particular chancellor who had a very specific decision about, or vision of how he wanted, what the leadership of this university system should look like, right? And so recognizing that there are men in place who are also invested in this, recognizing that we as communities across the board have to pull each other up. This isn't necessarily just a top-down thing. I think that this is, as human beings, we give each other permission to model to each other what we want and how we want. And so when I think about confidence, for example, it is something that, there's a lot of self-work that needs to be done in order to present as in integrity and in wholeness as a human being, right? And that kind of authenticity and that kind of genuineness is what people relate to more often than not, even on an energetic level, whether it's they agree with you or they don't even know why, they can't, they are repelled. It's right, move, because more often than not, again, like-minded individuals come together with common goals in mind. And as a society, we know, Christine just mentioned equal pay, and you just mentioned equal pay, Larry. We know that African-American women and Latinas and Native American women and Asian women do not make the same money on the dollar as white women, and they don't make the same money as white men. And so that is something across the board that as a society, we need to fix. We know as a society that's the ratio of women attending college versus men is about 60-40. So you have that, and then we step one up to who are teaching our students. And of that, contingent faculty, adjuncts are mostly populated by women. A significant women of color is there. So that is exploited labor, right? And then you go up and how many are tenured, right? And then of the tenured, how many are full and how, so and that's just in our industry of higher education. When we look across the board, when I talk to students, particularly students of color, but I say across the board, we are underrepresented in every single industry that you can think of. We are overrepresented in incarceration. But other than that, we are underrepresented. So that means that when we think about potential avenues, it doesn't have to be lawyer, doctor, engineer. It literally is, we need more journalists, we need more sports writers, we need more scientists, God knows. We need more, we need more of us everywhere. And that is the commitment that we will have to making the nation that we actually want to see, where we are all equal. And so I think it's really important to say that, particularly on this day, which is Trans Day of Visibility, right? Women's rights are human rights, trans rights are human rights. How do we want to treat each other, and what is the society that we want to live in? And then what part can we individually play to put that in place?
Awesome, awesome. President Ramsey.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things, and I would agree that things are a little better, but we have a long way to go as a nation. But one of the things that I think that we as women need to do is we need to be bolder when we are seeking opportunities. And what I mean by that is when we are offered whatever the salary is, if that is not what we have in our mind at the time that we are offered that salary, we really need to speak up. Based on some research that has been done, it shows that men don't have a problem at all negotiating their salaries, but women to a lesser degree. So those of us who are in leadership roles need to really have those conversations to let women know it's okay for you to ask for what you believe that you are worth. Now, when it comes to equity, there are some things that could be done, systemically. If there was enough funding for, in the coffers for everyone. When I think about where we sit as women who are in leadership, we then are in positions to be able to do something about it. last week, I believe it was Friday, I was a keynote speaker for a STEM Women conference, and a woman who was a faculty member when I was a department chair in natural sciences spoke about the fact that when I was department chair, I looked at all of the salaries and noticed that her salary was lower than anyone's in the department. Though she was an associate professor, some others assistant professors, her salary was the lowest in the department, and she had been there the longest. And so I talked to her about it, and I said, we need to try to do something about this. And so I went to the administration to say, we need to bring her salary into parity with some of these other people in the department who may not look like her. And so honestly, I wasn't doing it because I was trying to get brownie points or anything. Had not even remembered that it happened until I was at that conference and this woman spoke about it. And of course, I got very full because it was not something I had expected. But that's what we have to do. We have to use our roles to do what is right.
Love that. Thank you so much. Thank you. All great feedback. So I have a few questions here that I would like to ask from the audience. And one attendee says, what steps do you apply for yourself when the imposter syndrome wants to talk you out of speaking up or moving into a new leadership role? Who wants to tackle that first?
I can speak on that. So first of all, I want to be really clear about this because more often than not, there are times when we take on the label of imposter syndrome and do not step back and say, wait, is it that I feel like I'm an imposter, or is it that I am in a white supremacist, racist, misogynist environment that does not want me to succeed? Because in that case, you are not the imposter, right? Your whole spirit is like warning signs. This is not going to be good, right? So there's a difference there. Because you may not feel worthy because the explicit messaging has been, we don't want you here. And more often than not, again, the higher up you go, guess what? None of these were built for us. So they may not want us there. Okay, now, next to that, so I really want to say that because again, so many women claim that, right? Women, not only women, people of color, like underrepresented in any space, you know, immigrant, working class, first gen, right? This kind of, oh, I don't belong, right? Because your spirit is telling you, warning, there are people in here who don't want you to be here. And that's okay. Acknowledge that and say, now, who does want me to be here? Because somebody wants me to be here, because somebody nominated me here, because somebody opened the door, because somebody pulled out the chair to have me sit at the table. Focus on them. Focus on the people who know that you belong there and have that be the loudest volume, the loudest voices, right? I talk about often the ticker tapes that we have, right? The things that we tell ourselves, right? And often that's anxiety, that's the worst things. Do not talk to yourself any worse than you would talk to your best friends or your pet. You cannot do that. You cannot expect that the world is going to treat you better than you treat yourselves. And that is internal talk, right? So all of those things, check yourselves. Are you being gentle with yourself? Are you giving yourself grace, right? Again, because we are talking about people who want to excel, who want to do better for our lives. We all do. So make sure that those things are in place. And then you focus, you have the collective around you who believes in you, who speaks life into your spirit whenever you need it, who loves you, not because of any accomplishment, not because you got that A or because you got that raise, but because you have value, period, as you are. And then that's your strength, that's your backpack, and then you move. Because at the end of the day, you know, Toni Morrison, if someone Googles short story Toni Morrison and work, she wrote a short story in the New Yorker, that appeared in the New Yorker, where she was, I think she was a teenager and she was cleaning houses. And the first time she went to clean a house, she came back and she was, she went to talk to her father, and she was like, oh, I don't think they liked me. I don't think, and he said, no, that's a job. They're not supposed to love you. We love you. So you focus on your community, chosen family, biological family, anybody who loves you, and you armor up in that way. That's how you move through. And you continue collecting the folks who can do that for you, and then you turn around and be that for someone else.
All right now, okay. Hey, you saying some stuff there now. All right, who else wants to jump in here?
I just want to say amen, Vanessa. It was obvious that you were very, very passionate about that. I mean, we have to believe in ourselves. And even if we have to have those conversations with ourselves before we go in the door to say, I can do this. I deserve this. And whatever it is that we need to say to ourselves, because I'm pretty sure all of us on this Zoom have had instances where we haven't felt that comfortable, but you really encourage yourself, if you will. And if you go in there and you feeling very confident about yourself, then it really will come off in a different way. Because sometimes it's just like babies can tell when the person who decides to hold them is a little nervous. Well, the same thing, we exude that if we go in there and we are not, if we are not very confident ourselves. And so do whatever you need to do to speak to yourself to have that confidence. And then the other thing I want to say is, don't assume that because you have a degree that you may be ready. As Vanessa was saying, I mean, have some people that are around you that are going to tell you the truth, people who love you, that will help you to see, well, maybe I need to have some different experiences to make sure that when I walk in that room, I can be very confident. But again, amen to you, Vanessa.
President Mangino, you want to jump in there?
So I would say we need to talk about it, right? And share, because we all feel it, right? And if we don't talk about it, then you think you're the only one. So I share with our students frequently about how, the first day of my first doctoral class, I thought for sure they were going to realize like, you don't belong there, right? You're not smart enough to be in that room, so that our students get that. And another time, my daughter was getting ready to go to a work dinner and, young 20s, and she was all nervous and having, a meltdown of sorts. And finally I said, do you not think that you belong there? And she just started to cry. She's like, yeah, I'm too young to be at that table. Like, I wonder how many other people at that table are going to feel the same way, right? And that it's okay. And I think the other thing is, yes, you exude confidence, right? The whole fake it till you make it. But I think also giving yourself the grace to ask questions, that's the best way to exude confidence, right? Because you're showing that you're vulnerable in that space and in getting information and not just pretending that you know it all is important also. But again, realizing that everybody feels it.
Thank you. Another question that we have time for, one more here, and this is a really good one. Do you think men in leadership roles should focus on advocating and standing up for women and empower and encourage them to self-advocacy?
I don't think it needs to be an either or. I think that so many times in this society, we are stuck in black, white, either or, that kind of binary thinking versus both and, right? Why not do both? Do all? Because guess what? We, particularly as women, I mean, part of the reason that we know that there's a drop off in women in terms of the higher ranks is because women more often than not are doing everything for everybody, right? They're leading families, they're raising children, they're taking care of their partner, they're cleaning the house. Like, just historically, we are socialized to do that, right? So guess what? There was also something else about sponsorship versus mentorship. Yeah, sponsor means you open that door and you lead folks in. That's what that is, right? And yeah, we need all of that. We need to stop, I think, as a society. The messaging we get in the society is a scarcity mindset, right? There can only be one. There can only be a few. No, there is more than enough for all of us. And so both ands is what I tell my students. My Macaulay students are Macaulay ands, right? I tell them they have CUNY double superpowers, right? And we all do, right? And so both ands, never either or.
Yeah, when you when the question was asked, it made me think about a conversation I had, I think just last week, where there was a situation raised about women and fit. And the person that was speaking with me was a gentleman who said, you know, sometimes I think that we don't think about, and as men, that we actually have privilege that we don't even realize that we have. And I think that in situations where something is being said, yes, as women, we should definitely speak up. He said, but you know, I think that as men, we need to talk about the fact that we know that we have privilege based on whatever that in that particular situation was talking about fit. And so I would say, yes, it's both and, but oftentimes we don't have the conversations, or people will sit silent who know that they should say something and speak up.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, men need to think about their own implicit bias, right? What's getting in the way? When I was provost at Ostos, there were a number of men who would constantly ask me, do you need help? And I'm like, does it look like I need help? Right? And would you ask that of a male in the same leadership role, right? So I think that's a role that's, you know, pretty easy for men to start to do, right? And who are you going to in the office? If there's 3 deans in the office, are you only going to the male deans, right? And why? So I think that's definitely something that men can do. And also lend a hand back, right? And sponsor women.
Thank you. Great responses. And thank you, audience, for providing the questions. So we're going to do a quick lightning round. We have about 8 minutes left. So last question, when you think about the people you go to for support, advice, and inspiration, who would you say inspired you the most and why? Dean Valdez.
My parents, because I know the sacrifices that they made for me, my ancestors, because I know the conditions under which they lived. And you know, there's on a t-shirt it says, you know, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. And I thank and I lean on those who carved a way for me when I wasn't even a thought in my mother's head. So those are all my inspirations.
Thank you. President Ramsey.
I would say, you know, my parents had a big part in that, but now they're both deceased, and I have a sister who people say that someone should really take her social work license, because she just tells you straight up front, look, it's not that serious. So so she's an encourager, but also she's going to keep it real, and I so appreciate that. And also someone I have met very recently, my executive coach, a phenomenal woman who will say to me, well, Patricia, you might want to rethink that. And so it's very encouraging to me. And we have actually now in this short time become friends because of her just being real. And also when I'm doing something that she thinks is great, she was like, I'm just so proud of you. So.
So I would say in the past, it would have been my doctoral mentor, a female faculty member who saw something in me and gave me many, many opportunities. And when I was looking for a faculty job, I was looking at different schools, and she's like, you know what, you need to go to CUNY. She's like, because you'll have so much room to grow there, right? And was she right? And then a chair, a male faculty who was one of my chairs, he had hired me and also kept telling me, like, you know, I think you'll make a really great president. And I'm like, I just want to be a faculty member. I just want to be in the classroom with students. And I think, you know, who inspires me today would be our students, right, at QCC, to make sure that I'm always doing the best job that I can do for them.
Thank you. Well, colleagues, we have reached the end of this series. I just want to thank each of you for not only agreeing to participate, but certainly the great work that you're doing on behalf of the City University of New York. And just know I am your little brother, and I'm here, glad to be here with you as we continue to improve the lives of so many New Yorkers, and certainly our faculty and staff and students to whom we are charged to serve and support. So thank you, everyone that stuck with us over the last, I would say, 45, 50 minutes here. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Look forward to the future in the fall semester as we announce a great new group of leaders that we will meet and have great conversation with as we did this academic year. Hope all of you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your semester. And as I always say to my college, the best is still yet to come.